Hi guys, in this video I want to talk about the object browser, which allows you to see all the classes in Microsoft Excel and all the members of those classes. And when I say members, I mean if I have a class, my members are going to be properties and functions. And so remember, properties are just values. They don't do anything. There's no action associated with it. They're just values you can set. And functions are actually actions. And functions can be actually functions, subroutines, or events. And we're going to see what those three, function, subroutine, and events are. Okay, so remember our story about the guy from Microsoft. He said he wanted to build Microsoft Excel, so he needed to define what an application is. And he did that by building a class, and all the classes is a blueprint, right? And the blueprint contains properties and functions. And he put that class, remember last time I showed you in the video, he put that in a library called Excel. So we go into our library Excel, and then we can access objects and functions by using this dot operator. If I do dot on something, I can access the properties, functions, subroutines, events of an object. And that's what this dot operator does. So here I am in the Excel library. I access an application object right here. And then I want to access the properties and functions and subroutines and events of that object, that application object. I can put the dot operator, and I could see all those properties and functions and subroutines and everything here in this convenient pop-up window. And notice active workbook here is a property. And how do I know it's a property? Well, I just know, but you can also tell by these little icons. This envelope with the little hand here denote or is meant to mean property. And this green box with some lines before it, those are either functions or subroutines. And then sometimes you'll see some lightning bolts, and I don't know if I can find a lightning bolt, but those are events. Okay. So here I accessed a property of the application object. This property is called active workbook. Active workbook is a property that is a workbook object. So if I could then access the properties and functions of that object, that workbook object, and here these are now the properties and functions of this workbook object. And again, I get this pop-up window, and I could scroll through and see all these properties, all these functions of a workbook object. So you still might be a little vague about that. You might be confused, and you might say, well, I can't really see anything. I mean, this little dot operator, I see it pops up a box, but I don't see how it's connected to an application object. Well, you can very easily understand that by clicking on this object browser. And you come to a window. This is the object browser, and you can see at the very top you have some drop-down lists. So the first drop-down is libraries, and there's various libraries that Microsoft Excel comes with. It comes with an Excel library, Office, scripting, STDOL, VBA, VBA project, all these things. But you're going to be working in Excel because you're going to be using VBA to manipulate Excel like 99% of the time. So you want to select Excel, and that Excel, when I select that Excel, I'm doing the same thing that you see here, Excel right here. This is Excel. This is the Excel library, and that's saying, okay, I want to search inside the Excel library for application. Now I just selected application because I know what I'm going to find, but you'll see how we can use this. So I search for application. There's a search results window. So it's going to find any class or property or function in the Excel library that has the word application in it. So here you can see there's actually a class called application, and it's in the Excel library. There's also application. There's an application property, and I know it's a property because it has this envelope in hand. There's an application property that's in the above average class. Now I have no idea what this above average class does, but I know there's a property called application in that above average class, and that class is in the Excel library. So that's all this search results does. It searches for the word application in the Excel library. And look at how much it returns. I mean, there's tons of results, right? Application is all over the place. It's a member of, let's say this one. This application is a member of the class chart area. And when I say member, I mean it's either a property or a function or subroutine or event. And this one is a property because it has that envelope in hand. Okay, so we know what the search result window does. Okay, so I want to work with the application class because I want to find this application object. This application object here that's in the application class, right? So I go here, I go into the application class, and I'm looking for, so here's my class application. There's this window down here called classes. This classes window shows you all the classes in this library. So if you change this library, now you're in the Office library and you're looking at all the classes in the Office library. So let me go back to the Excel library, and I want to look at the application class. So remember when I said classes are blueprints, they have properties and functions. And here they are. Here's the members of the class. There's properties in here. There's functions. And when I said functions before, I should have said functions, subroutine, or events. Those are the three things that can do actions. They perform actions. So here's a subroutine, add custom list, that takes a parameter, two parameters, and it's a member of the application class. It's in the Excel library application class. So this is like the definition window. So see how this works? You select a library. You can either search for things, or you can just see the classes in the library, and you could then see the members of that class. And when you click on something, you're going to have a definition down here. So if I just click on application, I see this class application is a member of the Excel library. If I click on now a member of that class, like active workbook, I see active workbook is a property of the application class here. It's a member of the application class. But what is active workbook? Well, it's a workbook object. Remember, this says active workbook is a workbook object because I'm defining it or Microsoft Excel defines it as a workbook. That means it's a workbook object. So look at here. Here I have my Excel library, my application object, and then I have a property called active workbook. Well, that's exactly what I see here. I'm in my application class, right? Here's my application object, and since this application object, right, this is an application object, so it can have a property called active workbook. So this active workbook here, this property active workbook, is the same property you see here, right here. And now I want to access I want to show you where the property name is of the active workbook object. I mean of the workbook object. So here's a workbook object called active workbook. I want to show you that if I click on this workbook, it's going to take me to the workbook class. So if I click on this, now I'm here in the workbook class, and I could see all the members of workbook. Now if I could just type N, and I'll go to it'll bring me automatically down to the N members. They could either be properties or functions, subroutines, or events. And here I have my name property, and it's a string, and it's a member of Excel.workbook, which means it's in the workbook class of the Excel library. So all I'm doing when you write VBA code is accessing, you're working with objects, which are just instances of classes, and you're accessing their properties and methods, meaning functions, subroutines, or events, and you're working with them. That's it. And this object browser allows you to see every single class. Well, first of all, it allows you to see every single library, and then within every single library, it allows you to see every single class and every single member. That's what this object browser does. It's pretty cool. One other thing is, if you are in a module and let's say you make a function, so now I'm writing my own functions. Well, that's an object, right? So I should be able to see that. And where's that going to be? That's going to be in the VBA project library. It's going to be right here, and if I click on members, if I click on it, I'll see down here public function test is a member of the VBA project library, and it's in module 1. So that's how this works when you click on VBA project. It sort of says module 1 is sort of a class, and within it there's a function, right? So that's all the object browser is. You could see all your objects, you could see all your members, you could see all the functions you write, you could see everything. This is it. I mean, this is as deep as it goes. There's nothing more to Microsoft VBA. So this is very cool, and if you have questions, email me. Bye.